So you play with Chat GPT and you think it's cool. It's time to understand how it gets its power so you can better understand its strengths and weaknesses and break that down for your students. So ChatGPT 3 is built on a natural language processor, which is a lot more important than you might think. This means that it's built on the human language. And this becomes super important in 2017 when Google researchers developed a transformer. And that transformer did something with that human language that is really important to know. So before we talk about that transformer, it's important to understand that everything before this was human-trained AI, which means that something like Alexa or a chatbot would have to be trained by a human for an input and what the response should be. So if my input might be in a chatbot, I want a refund for my airline ticket, the output would be trained by the human to say, okay, here's what you do next. Okay, so back at the Google Transformer Lab, this transformer is being trained on massive amounts of information, but it's starting to self-select what it thinks you want as the output. So you say, I want a refund for something. It tells you what it thinks on its own, not human trained, what the output should be. And from this Google Transformer comes GPT-3. And GPT-3, if you break it down, is generative. The G is generative, which means it learns from itself. It's pre-trained, which is what we saw with this transformer. And the T is transformer. So GPT-3 comes about, but it's trained on 45 terabytes of information, which to you and I would take 500,000 lifetimes to consume. So with all this information, it now has 175 billion parameters of which it thinks it can figure out what you're asking for. So it's input, and now 175 billion different parameters in which to give you this output. But this output is what's really important because this output could be incorrect, it could be misinformation, it could be biased information, and it could have a lot of problems. And that's what we have to teach students. And from GPT-3 comes Chat GPT, which is built on this. I'm going to ask you something in natural language and you're going to respond to me. And if we are good educators right now, we have to get students ready with information literacy to validate that information that Chat GPT and whatever comes after it is giving us, because it's not always correct. So if we're to have AI infused classrooms, we have to understand this process, tell students about this process, and teach information literacy, which becomes vital. Because waiting in the wings is Google Brain. And Google Brain will be 9 times larger than ChatGPT and have 100 or 1.75 trillion parameters rather than 175 billion. So massive amounts of change are coming, and we've got to teach kids to get them ready for their future.